Hey, everybody. Exciting finish to that last Phillies game, and this is the Phillies Talk podcast presented by Team Toyota. I'm Corey Seidman, joined by Jim Salisbury, and we're coming off a Phillies Braves series that ended with Alec Bohm's controversial slide at home plate. Many people think he did not touch the plate, but the only people that matter are the boys in blue and the boys in the league office who looked at it in replay review, and it ruled Alec Bohm safe, and the Phillies won the game. The Braves were not happy. Brian Snitker threw a fit, went out on the field, and Drew Smyly sounded off after the game, the starting pitcher. I even saw Justin Turner, the Dodgers third baseman who had nothing to do with the game, called it garbage and agreed with Smyly that, why even have replay review if it won't overturn something like that? Jim, I guess the first question I have for you is, did you think that Alec Bohm touched the plate?
No, I did not think he touched home plate, Corey. Obviously, we were treated on the telecast to many replays of it, and I just don't know how anybody could really come away from that thinking that he touched home plate. The umpire called him safe from the get-go, and there probably wasn't enough conclusive evidence to overturn it out of New York. I mean, that said, it was just hard to think that he touched the plate there. So I'm not really sure what they were looking at in New York, but clearly they didn't think there was enough video evidence to overturn the call, and it has to be conclusive. That's the way the rule reads. Phillies come out of there with a victory. The fates shined upon them, and you know what? There will be games this year when the fates do not shine upon them. When a call goes against them, everything in this game usually has a way of evening out. So the Phillies escape Atlanta with a victory, with the help of that call, and go to New York. But, one of the most encouraging things, Corey, in that game for me was moments after when Hector Neris came in, and we've seen it time and time again. Phillies, rally for a lead late in the game, in that case in the top of the ninth inning, and then it's a nervous ninth inning, and all of a sudden everybody's on the edge of their chair, and there's traffic on the bases, and who knows what happens. I thought it was very encouraging that Hector Neris came in and kept his composure and got a nice quick save for the Phillies so they could get out of town before all the angry Atlantans were on them for stealing one.
Yeah, and Hector Neris did that against the top of the Braves order. Pablo Sandoval led off in a pinch hit spot. He hurt the Phillies last week, but getting Ronald Acuna and Ozzie Albies in order after that, it prevented the Phillies from having to face Freddie Freeman, who homered in every game of this series. So, you're hesitant to say that Hector Neris has turned a corner and gotten even better because it's very early in the season. But in the early going, 5 scoreless appearances, he's finished 4 games. He's really seized that closer's role, a closer's role that we thought at the beginning of the year might go to Archie Bradley, who's now down with an oblique strain. We talked about oblique strains recently as it regarded Brad Miller. And, it tends to be like a 3-week, 4-week type injury. And, man, Archie Bradley's a crucial piece of this bullpen, even though he wasn't off to the hottest start, the most expensive reliever in this bullpen. And now the Phillies are going to be without him for the foreseeable future. He doesn't have a timetable just yet, but it really makes several members of this bullpen even more vital than they were before. The 3 who stick out the most are Brogdon, Coonrod, and Kinsler.
No question. Someone goes down, other people have to step up. So far, so good on especially Brogdon. I think he's looked really good. The way, bullpens go, guys build confidence and managers develop confidence in that particular reliever. All of a sudden they start using them more. All of a sudden they start being used in more pivotal roles. And I think you can see that happen with Brogdon, and Coonrod's done a pretty good job. I know he gave up a home run last night. But yeah, you lose a guy like Archie Bradley, who was their signature addition. You're going to feel it. You're going to feel it. He's been a bit of a head scratcher. His velocity has come down the last couple of years. It hasn't been, I wouldn't say he's been really popping it, even in spring training or here in the early season. So maybe explains something. I don't know. You hope there's not more going on there. But it's funny. I was not surprised yesterday when I heard he was going on the DL, because there was a shot of him Saturday night after he came out of that game and he was bending the trainer's ear in the dugout. And you're like, So hopefully he can get this past him, because he was an important pickup in the offseason, and there's a lot of season left. The whole season is left essentially, and they're going to need that guy. They need his experience. They're going to need his arm. They're going to need him to produce. So get him healthy quick and get him back out there. But in the meantime, opportunities for other people that are going to have to be seized upon, and they're going to have to keep getting innings from that rotation, because otherwise, there was that little stretch there when they weren't getting many innings, 4 straight games, 5 or less from their starters. And then Eflin on Saturday night and Moore on Sunday night both survived rocky first innings and gave them some innings. So it all fits together. If they don't get enough innings from that starting rotation, their bullpen's going to break down. So they need to keep great resilience by Matt Moore and Zach Eflin, and they need to keep seeing that as they move to New York. They're going to have Chase Anderson on the mound. He's a guy that has trouble getting through into the middle innings. So, day one of that series, bullpen might be under the microscope without Archie Bradley. So just a lot going on. But I would say you get off to a 6-3 start. Really good job. I think anybody would take that, right? Especially against the opponents you were going to see. Just doubling back on that game last night. Good job by Dusty Wathan and at third base with Bohm. And I don't even dig that much into analytics or anything. I think it was pretty simple. You have a designated hitter in left field. You got to take a shot, right? You got to take a shot. You got to take a shot to steal that game. And good job by Bohm running hard, and whether or not the call was right or wrong, I loved the gamble there because you had a DH out in Marcell Ozuna out in left field, and give it a shot. Try to steal that one and get out of town. And that's what they did. And Alec Bohm, have you noticed this? I see a kid who's starting to get comfortable in his skin. He's showing more emotion, showing some fire. Gets upset when he doesn't have a good at bat. But really a team guy. Very, very happy when the team does something well, and I'm seeing a little exuberance. And we all like to swing and the player he is, but that type of exuberance and that type of the love of winning and the love of succeeding and that emotion that all goes with it. That's going to play well in Philadelphia, I think.
Yeah, we talked to Alec Bohm last night about, 35 minutes after that play happened, 45 minutes after that play happened. He still had a little edge to him. You could tell that he's still carrying that play with him. His quote was, "I was called safe. That's all that matters."
That is all that matters.
Yeah, and when Dusty Wathan sent Bohm, it was a shallow fly ball, and like you said, Marcell Ozuna is not known for his defense. But another reason that it was the right call in that moment is because if you don't send Bohm there, you have 2 outs, a man on third, and Roman Quinn coming up, and Roman Quinn is 1 for 16 with 8 strikeouts this year. So you have better chances of, making a good slide or having Ozuna throw a ball inaccurately than you do of hitting a single with 2 outs to score the go-ahead run in that situation, probably.
Yeah, great point. Roman Quinn, 1 for 16, 8 strikeouts, no walks. So it was like the perfect storm. You had to send in. I loved it late in the game. Obviously, you liked it that it worked. But you try to steal one and get the heck out of town, and that's exactly what they did. But you mentioned, Harper's starting to get going a little bit. Real Muto's getting going, so the offense really is starting to put up some runs, and that's a good thing for Roman Quinn and Adam Hazley, who are combined 5 for 35 with 12 strikeouts and no walks. Wow. That is just unacceptable. It becomes, I guess, a little more acceptable if the rest of the lineup is doing their job and producing, because all of a sudden now that hole in the lineup is not as glaring. So they need to continue to root for the big guys up above to continue to put up numbers, or else the glare is going to intensify on them. And eventually it will intensify more on them. I'd say maybe later this month, after guys have had a decent number of at-bats to kind of get going. But like we've talked about before, I don't think they're going to tolerate a sinkhole in that 8th spot, a sinkhole in center field in terms of offensive production. So the tryout continues, right, in center field, and so far not necessarily so good, but they're 6-3, and winning has a way of putting a nice fresh coat of paint on it and making things look better.
Fresh paint a coat?
Fresh coat.
No, you said it right. It's just a shout out to Conrad Thompson and Bruce Pitchard if they're listening. But The 7 and 8 spots in the Phillies lineup, they have been a sinkhole so far. The Phillies are 9 for 65, hitting 138 out of those spots with 2 walks and 24 strikeouts. It was mildly interesting Sunday night that Joe Girardi flipped Gene Segura and Didi Gregorius in the lineup. Gregorius batted 7, Segura 6. Girardi said it was because the Phillies were facing the left-handed starting pitcher in Drew Smyly, but Gregorius' spot came up instrumental multiple times. He had a 3-run homer, had that game-winning sacrifice fly. It was a good night for the Phillies offense. Really, everybody 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 contributed in the win. You had JT Realmuto, who manufactured that first run by doubling, stealing third, and scoring on a sac fly. Hoskins, Harper, Gregorius all homer. Bohm with that slide that wins the game. Gene Segura also drove in a run. And, Bryce Harper's homered here 2 games in a row. And our friends over at PointsBet have the odds tonight for this Phillies-Mets series opener at plus 270 for Bryce Harper to hit a home run, a $10 bet that would pay out 27. What do you think? I mean, it seems like when Harper starts to lock in, he goes on these power binges. And the Phillies are facing Monday night a pitcher that they hit hard last week in David Peterson.
Yeah, you're right. He is a streaky guy. He does go on those power binges. You know what? I think, the match is a left-hander, but, you try to get him out of there early. There's a good chance they'll see that bullpen. I think it's a sound bet just because Bryce Harper hits him in bunches. I mean, he hasn't really lofted one yet. He's just hitting them like 115 miles an hour off the bat, these scorchers, but I could see him, bright lights, big city, New York City. He likes playing up there. I could see him launching another one. So maybe you throw a shekel or 2 on that.
Well, this Phillies Mets series, it looks like the Phillies are going to face Jacob deGrom. They might even face Marcus Stroman in this series because he got only 1 out on Sunday before the Mets-Marlins game was postponed. The Phillies have Chase Anderson going in the series opener. And to get back to Matt Moore, who started the game Sunday night, he's made 2 starts in the Phillies uniform, and he hasn't been sharp in either one of them. He did settle in to an extent Sunday night, but he also had traffic on the base paths in all 5 innings. And I think it's 17 base runners he's put on in 8 1/3 innings so far. The command just hasn't been sharp. Not exactly the guy that we saw early in spring training. And I guess another reminder of why those spring training performances can be, not exactly spot on.
Spring training is practice. He was good early. We saw a little struggle late. I mean, if you do the math, the hitters are getting locked in late in camp, and it becomes a different game. Early in camp, a lot of guys, they're just kind of, tracking pitches and getting the field, being in the batter's box again. So spring training is very different from the regular season. He's the number 4 starter. They're going to have nights like we've seen. There's going to be times of struggle. They just got to hope that I think the big thing is keep him in games and give him some innings. He doesn't have to dazzle all the time, but this 4 and 5 spot, you're going to have to get enough innings so you don't kill your bullpen. And then you got to go out and try to win. You really got to try to make hay the nights Nola, Wheeler, and Eflin pitch. So, Chase Anderson tonight, we'll see what happens. But at least, the Phillies, they do come back in this 4-game series with Nola, Wheeler, and Eflin. I mean, the Mets are TBA on Wednesday. That could be Stroman and then deGrom. Eflin on Thursday should be a great one. I do think the Phillies, and this is not a unique thought or an original thought, because we've talked about it ad nauseum. They need to play better defense. We've talked about how we look at that diamond. I see one above average major league defender, and that's JT Realmuto. But that doesn't mean the rest of the guys can't be better. Acuna beats out a routine ground ball last night to shortstop. Hats off to Acuna. Hats off. But that play's got to be made. Bohm had a tough night in the first game of that Atlanta series with a couple of errors that both turned into runs. And then the Alvarado play on Saturday night was a defensive lapse, and that turns into a run. Good teams will capitalize on another team's miscues in the field. And that's exactly what the Atlanta Braves did in the first 2 games of that series against the Phillies. And again on Sunday night with Acuna, running that one out. So I just think the defense needs to be better, and I think it can be better. I really do. So that's going to be an important factor in this Mets series.
Defense played a role Saturday night as well. There was that pivotal play where Jose Alvarado had a comebacker at the mound and flipped around to throw to second to start a double play, and there was nobody there. And the winning run across the plate at that point, you got to cut down the run at the plate probably in that spot, run at the guy or throw home. And, that was an issue. It didn't go down as an error. It went down as a fielder's choice, but it was a defensive blunder for the Phillies. Same could be said for that Ronald Acuna play. It didn't go down as an error, but, in rewatching that play, at first I thought, Didi did all he could do. Didi Gregorius did all he could do. Then rewatching it, okay, he tapped his glove, like he double clutched for like a split second before uncorking the throw. But, I don't think even a perfect throw without the double clutch, I don't think that gets Acuna there. I think the issue was that Didi was too far back. Maybe if he was a few steps forward. But then the issue you run into with Ronald Acuna is he hits the ball so damn hard that how can you play in against him? That seemed to me just like a phenomenal talent, just showing off his skill set. And what an incredible series Acuna had in every way.
Yeah, he's a great talent. His bat speed and the way he uses that bat head is just incredible. And I think his first double of the series on Friday night was a pitch in. And I mean, you can really see him. And this is something that, it's hard to teach a hitter. It's like almost God-given, but the way he brings his hands in so he can take that inside pitch and get the good part of the bat on it, keep it fair, just incredible. You see a lot of guys that get out in front of that and hit it, 7 miles foul into the upper deck. I mean, he's really a really gifted hitter.
Yeah, Freddie Freeman also homered in all 3 games of that series against the Phillies after going hitless the previous week. So, the appropriate response from Freddie Freeman. He's a free agent at the end of the season. And, man, it's just like unfathomable to think about Freddie Freeman not in an Atlanta Braves uniform. What do you think is going to happen there? Do you think that they're going to do everything they can to bring him back? He signed a pretty team-friendly deal that's about to expire. But I just can't picture that guy going to, like, I don't know, San Francisco or something. It just doesn't feel right.
I can't picture him going anywhere. And it's amazing. Over the last 20, 25 years, they've had so many iconic, Atlanta Braves, Chipper Jones and Glavine and Maddox and Smoltz. And those 3 guys did go elsewhere, but I only
not
think
in primes.
Yeah, not in their primes. And I only think of them as Braves. I only think of them with the Atlanta across their chest. I don't see any way that they let him go. And I think they're smart enough not to let him go. He's an iconic franchise player on a Hall of Fame track. His number will be out there on the wall with Aaron and Necro and Chipper and Bobby Cox and Eddie Matthews someday. There's no way they let him go. And he doesn't even seem like the type of player who'd want to go. He seems like one of those guys like who'd want to spend his whole career in one spot. I mean, I think the money is going to be such that he should stay. I mean, why? You're doing something special there. He needs to wear that uniform for his whole career. They built that stadium out in the suburbs, and that's a mint. That's a gold mine. And once the fans get back there full force, I mean, they own all that land around it. They're printing money. They can afford Freddie Freeman. They need to afford Freddie Freeman. He just doesn't seem like the type of guy that's going to have a wandering eye, and the type of guy that wants to uproot. I think, he reminds me just really of Chipper Jones. He's like the baton was handed from Chipper to Freddie Freeman. I believe he'll stay. Who knows? Maybe they'll get something done during the year. If they don't, I really wouldn't read too much into it or panic, because a new CBA is coming and they just might want to see what the landscape looks like. But I would be surprised if Freddie Freeman is not a Brave for an awful long time. And they got a really smart general manager, Alex Anthopoulos, one of the best in the business. He knows that they need Freddie Freeman. I think ownership knows that too. They'll get something done.
When you mention all the iconic players that have gone through Atlanta over the last few decades, I'm thinking in my head, they've been able to keep all of them. Like, they've been able to keep all of the key guys, Freeman, Acuna, Albies, going back to Chipper and Andrew Jones and all those pitchers. The only guy that jumps out to me that they didn't keep was Jason Hayward, who probably that turned out to be a good decision because they didn't pay him the money that he got from the Cubs, and then he really hasn't lived up to that contract. I guess they also traded for Teixeira that 1 year and weren't able to retain him, but they just have been able to, in that front office, even though they're not a team that goes out and spends a ton of money, they're able to keep their core guys.
And they got Albies and Acuna on very team-friendly deals, which should help their ability to retain Freddie Freeman. But yeah, they've done a great job. Atlanta's always done a great job scouting their own people. Seldom do they let a guy walk and get burned by that guy. So they know what they have, and I think they know what they have in Freddie Freeman. The world knows what they have in Freddie Freeman. What was that? Since we're talking gambling, let's lay a wager. I'm going to lay a wager that Freddie Freeman is a Brave again next year, tormenting the NL East.
From one first baseman to another, it has to be the stat of the season so far for the Phillies. 9 games in, Rhys Hoskins has not walked yet. I mean, how is that even possible? Have you seen like a shift in approach from Hoskins, or just those 3-2 counts haven't ended in ball 4?
Yeah. He's not missing, right? He's not missing fouling a ball back and extending the at bat. Then, his very strong selectivity kicks in. He often ends up with a walk. I don't see a huge change. I think it's too small of a sample size. I just think he's kind of locked in and not missing anything right now. And that's good. That's really good. And it's good for his, obviously his production, but getting that early season confidence, I think, is just tremendous. We're seeing it in him. We're seeing it in Hector out there at the end of games. So, that I always talk about it. You got to build that confidence. And when you got it, you ride it. So maybe Bryce Harper will do something in Citi Field, hitting the ball hard. Last couple of games in Atlanta, maybe he's the guy to watch as that series begins on Monday night.
You said Rhys Hoskins has been locked in and not missing, and thanks to all of you out there who are locked into the Phillies Talk podcast, not missing any episodes. We'll be back with you later in the week to talk about this Phillies Mets series. Thanks for listening.